Okay, welcome to today's webinar, Apple Device Management for Beginners. My name's Nick Thompson, and I'm going to be your host today. Let's take a look at our agenda. So we're going to do just a brief overview of Jamf so that everyone is familiar with who we are, what our mission is, and what products we offer. Then we're really going to dive deep into what different Apple services and programs are available for IT in order to help them with their Apple deployments. Then we're going to look at the management lifecycle of Apple devices, and we're going to do so with the lens of Jamf Pro in mind as well. And we'll wrap up with some best practices for infrastructure planning, where we'll dive a little bit deeper into more technical details around how products like Jamf Pro can fit into your infrastructure and what sort of integrations are available and what it looks like for your infrastructure. And we'll end with some next steps and some Q&A. So, our first topic here, just a brief overview of Jamf. For those who aren't familiar with us, this is our mission. We help organizations succeed with Apple. We only manage Apple devices. We do not manage Android, and we do not manage Windows. And that allows us to stay laser focused on everything that Apple is doing for the enterprise and for education. Now, we do that with our two products. We do it with Jamf Now and Jamf Pro. Jamf Now is really simple mobile device management, no IT required. And Jamf Pro is really designed for IT professionals, Apple management for IT pros. And when you compare the two, you see again, Jamf Now is really all about easy device setup, simple management, versus Pro goes through the entire lifecycle management of Apple devices. And you can see the two products side by side here. They're both web-based, very easy to navigate, and you access them just from a modern web browser. Now, today's presentation is going to primarily focus on Jamf Pro. However, if you're a smaller organization looking to manage just a handful of devices, I'd highly recommend that you check out Jamf Now. You can even sign up for a free account for Now, and you can manage up to 3 devices for free. But again, today's presentation will primarily focus on Pro. And again, a little bit about us here. We help over 15,000 organizations to manage over 10 million Apple devices. You see us primarily in industries like tech companies and marketing groups, but of course in the Fortune 500, the most valuable brands out there, and something that we're extremely proud of is how many schools that we support as well too. And we've been doing this Apple management thing for a while now. In fact, we've got a history of supporting every new Apple release as it comes out. Most recently, last fall with High Sierra and iOS 11, we had day zero support for all of those new features that were built into those operating systems. And you can see our track record going back all the way to iOS 4 there and Snow Leopard. So we've been, again, doing this for a while. We've been around since 2002. All right, enough about Jamf. Let's talk about the different Apple programs and services that are out there that can help you as IT administrators. So the first service that we need to know about is a very fundamental service, and that's known as the Apple Push Notification Service, or APNS for short. And what APNS does is it maintains a constant connection to your devices so you don't have to. All communication happens back to your server, your MDM server, your Jamf Pro server, and is kept secure. Now, this framework is the basis for allowing you to do things like pushing down commands and apps and profiles to your Apple devices. This framework is known as Mobile Device Management, or MDM. And not only does it work on iOS devices, but it also works on the Mac. Now, we have a little bit of extra things going on the Mac as well, too, with something that we call our Jamf Agent, which extends MDM capability, and we'll dive much deeper into that a little bit later in the presentation here. But the main point of this slide is that you understand this service called Apple Push Notification Service that maintains constant connection to your devices so you don't have to. It requires that you open up a few ports on your network, and it makes sure that you have a connection to the 17 block of IP addresses which Apple owns. So APNS, in short, is the fundamental basis for how this works. Now, I mentioned mobile device management. That's the next service or technology that I want to highlight here because this is an important one. Mobile device management, or MDM, is really the built-in management framework from Apple. This lets you define various settings inside of all of the operating systems, and you do so by building these little profiles. Those profiles, as we just saw in the previous slide, are delivered all over the air using the Apple Push Notification Service. And to get a little more technical on these profiles, they're actually XML files. And they're XML files that you can build using various tools, including Jamf. So, mobile device management. And we'll show you what's capable with mobile device management a few slides later here. The next service that I want to highlight from Apple has to deal with how you deploy devices. And this is known as Apple's Device Enrollment Program, or DEP, as you may have heard it as an acronym. And this is really zero-touch deployment. It allows you to order devices from Apple or from resellers and have them be automatically enrolled during setup. And if you have previous purchases, you can actually roll back purchases or assign purchases to your device enrollment program dating all the way back from March of 2011, provided that you've bought them with your Apple customer number. Device enrollment program. The next program I want to highlight is something called the Volume Purchase Program, or VPP, as you may have heard it as an acronym. And this lets you license Mac and iOS apps from the App Store, and it lets you distribute those apps to individuals or directly to a device. And if you distribute it directly to a device, that means you do not need to use an Apple ID. It's Apple ID independent. And these are free programs from Apple that you can sign up for. So we looked at APNS, MDM, DEP, and VPP. There's a lot of acronyms in there. And a new program that Apple just rolled out that I wanted to highlight next year helps kind of consolidate at least two of these. And that is Apple Business Manager. You may have heard about this here very recently. This just launched from Apple. And essentially, it's a combination of DEP and VPP into a single portal. And it allows IT administrators to manage roles, apps and books, and manage device assignments. And there are some easy migration paths out there. If you happen to have already signed up for DEP and VPP in the past, you can easily migrate over to the new Apple Business Manager. And it is fully supported inside of Jamf Pro. So what is inside of Apple Business Manager? Well, I mentioned those three categories. There are roles. So you can delegate privilege across different roles, whether you're the administrator, a people manager, a device manager, or a content manager. And you use managed Apple IDs specifically for IT, so anyone logging into Apple Business Manager. You do not use managed Apple IDs, though, for your employees. Managed Apple IDs are only for people logging in to Apple Business Manager. The next section, apps and books, right? This is volume purchasing of apps and books. This is the VPP component of what's been migrated over to Apple Business Manager here. And it's a little token that you can upload inside of Jamf Pro that establishes a link, and you can assign licenses to different locations that you set up inside of Business Manager. And you can transfer those licenses around between different locations. The devices portion, which is really the DEP portion, allows you to add your different MDM servers or pre-stages, which we'll talk about a little bit later here. And it's a token, again, that you upload into Jamf Pro to establish communication. And you can assign devices by serial number, by order number, or by a CSV file. So as you purchase devices from Apple, they flow into here, and you can assign them to your appropriate server or pre-stage. And you can even set a default server for device types. You can say, have all of my Macs go to this particular server, and all my iOS devices go to this particular server. So that's Apple Business Manager. Now, if you're a school, Apple's had Apple School Manager out now for a while, and it's very, very similar to Apple Business Manager, except it adds two important things that we see at the bottom here. First is that those managed Apple IDs are for students and for staff. And Apple School Manager also enables a couple of great things related to shared iPad integration, SIS integration, and Classroom app. Just a little bit of differences between these two. You can see, again, that managed Apple IDs on Apple Business Manager are really just for IT or for everyone. For School Manager, they're for everyone, and for Business Manager, they're for IT only. And you can see the differences here between the two programs. And what do these look like inside of Jamf Pro? Well, again, you just upload a little token file between the inside of these two. And on the apps and books side of things, your licenses are just read and shown up right there. And on the DEP side, or the device assignment side, your devices just show up right there. And you can define how they appear inside of your device manager. So again, Apple Programs and Services, Jamf Pro integrates with all of these things: APNS, MDM, Apple Business Manager, and Apple School Manager. So, next topic here, I want to talk about the lifecycle management of these devices. And to look at a lifecycle management, I want to look at it through this particular lens, or this approach, where we'll start off by deploying devices, configuring them, getting the appropriate apps on them, gathering inventory data, making sure that they are secure, and providing our users a unique way to get apps that they need without having to bug IT. So this is the lens that we'll go through for our lifecycle management. So we'll start off with zero-touch deployments. And the image that you see on the right is exactly how we hand out new Macs to employees here at Jamf. 3 steps: open up the box, power it on, and there is no step 3. This same process that you'll see here works on Mac, iOS, and Apple TV devices. So let's take the role of an end user here. We're booting up a Mac for the first time, and we walk through the familiar setup assistant. I select which country I'm in. I select my keyboard language. I connect it to a Wi-Fi network. Note, this does not have to be my corporate network at this time. This can just be like my guest network or my home network. It just needs to connect to the internet in order to receive this next screen here, which is the remote management screen. So this has been read by Jamf and by Apple and said that this Mac is enrolled in Apple Business Manager, and it requires management. Not only that it requires management here, I as the end user cannot skip this. I can also throw up a challenge, an authentication challenge on this screen, where I'm going to ask my end users to authenticate with their LDAP credentials. So they won't be able to move past this screen without authenticating using their credentials here. I'm then creating my local computer account, and I as IT have full control over what kind of account is created here. I can make my user here be a standard admin, standard account, or I can make them an admin if I want to, or I could skip this step altogether if I'm using network-based accounts. So I'm setting up my Mac then, and I'm brought to my home screen, and I get a little nifty notification coming in from the upper right-hand corner telling me some things. And if we zoom in on this notification, we see that it says, installing software and security settings, check out self-service for more resources, Heart IT. kind of a cute message there from IT, and you as IT can configure this however you want this to behave. But what really happened in the background? Well, we wirelessly provisioned this device using Jamf thanks to the zero-touch deployments. We then installed some software using volume apps, and we applied some security settings using that mobile device management framework. And so when we zoom back out and the user opens up their self-service app, we can now see that this Mac is fully managed and the user is ready to go to get additional resources that they need. And for one step further, if I open up System Preferences, I can see all of those different profiles and settings that were laid down on here. Now, I should note that, zero-touch deployment is really great, but if you have an environment that doesn't support that workflow, we do have other enrollment methods to at least get your devices enrolled, whether that's using some traditional imaging workflows or a user-based enrollment where you go to a website, download a little profile, and it kicks off that same enrollment. So we saw how we deploy devices zero-touch. Now let's configure them. Let's get some settings on there. And that's, again, where we're going to use mobile device management. So what sort of settings or configuration profiles are available for MDM? Well, there's a lot of different things. And these are just some examples that I've categorized here for you. Some basics of doing passcodes and restrictions and configuring the Wi-Fi network and configuring how my VPN settings behave. Doing various accounts. I want my users to get access to their Office 365 account right away. Or maybe I'm using different LDAP credentials or LDAP service, and I want to configure that. I want to make sure some security settings are laid down. I want to deploy some certificates and enforce some security policies. And I want to do some advanced settings like change how the dock behaves or change how the Finder behaves. And what's great is that these configurations are for the entire Apple ecosystem, as I mentioned earlier. It works on the Mac, it works on iPhone, iPad, and Apple TV. These profiles, this management framework is the basis across all Apple devices. But when it comes to Mac management, MDM is pretty good, but sometimes you need a little bit more for Mac management. You need to do some of these more advanced things like terminal commands or scripts or patching or custom package deployments. And that's why we also have an agent that gets installed on the Mac. This is just a binary that gets automatically installed after you enroll your devices, and it adds a hidden admin account that you can control that gives you remote root access to Mac OS. And that lets you execute things like policies and scripts and run software updates and a whole lot more. In fact, here are the different things that the Jamf agent is capable of doing. So installing package files or enforcing FileVault or running custom scripts or binding a Mac to a directory service or modifying user accounts that are on these devices. So when it comes to Mac management, really Jamf offers both the MDM framework that's built in and that Jamf agent for total configuration. So now we need to do some app management. We want to deploy some apps. So the first thing is we can do that volume purchasing of App Store apps. So we're going to buy some of those apps that are located inside of Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. In this case, I'm procuring 100 licenses of Keynote. Now the app happens to be free, but I still need that license in order to deploy it. Those licenses are then read by Jamf Pro. I use Jamf Pro then to appropriately scope which devices get those particular licenses, and then I push that particular app using Jamf Mobile Device Management Framework, so the MDM framework. Really great, simple, user doesn't need an Apple ID at all. But you may be asking, Nick, what about all of those apps outside of the App Store, right? I need to push down Dropbox or Microsoft Office or Adobe Creative Suite or CrashPlan or an antivirus tool. Well, that's where our agent comes into play again. because we've got the ability to do custom software installations. There's an app that's included with Jamf Pro called Composer, which lets you take snapshots of custom software installs. It builds your own custom package file, and then you can push that package file using the Jamf agent. Now, pushing software down once is one half of the story. Of course, I need to keep that software up to date, which is why we also have a patch management framework built into Jamf Pro. And this allows you to do patching for third-party software, including macOS itself, where we monitor specific software titles and then tell you what the eligibility of those devices. And we help automate the deployment of that package file. And it's really great because as an end user, all I do is see something like this, where I get a little notification coming in from the upper right-hand corner saying, in this case, Google Chrome is out of date. Please update it as soon as possible. And I can allow the end user to update it on their own, or I can enforce that patch when the time is right in terms of what I choose. So we've deployed devices, we configured them, we've got some apps on there. Now let's gather some inventory data and help make our lives a little bit easier by automating some things. Jamf Pro collects a lot of inventory data. We get some great information about the device itself, when it last checked in, the IP address. We get some hardware information about the device, serial number, the model number, how much hardware or how much RAM it has, hard drive, etc. What version of macOS it's running, and some application usage logs, so we can see how often our users are using particular apps. From there, we can build various groups. We can build two types of groups. The first one is a static group, where we just say this set of devices is a group. This could be the marketing department. This could be the 10th floor. This could be a lab, whatever you want it to be. And I can then say, great, go apply some sort of profile, a configuration profile, or a Jamf agent policy to that group. Now, smart groups work the other way around. I start off by saying, find me devices that meet this set of criteria. Then Jamf Pro will dynamically show you that set of criteria, and you can then automatically apply a profile or a policy to that group. So where does that come in handy? Well, think of automated tasks here. For example, find me all of my devices without a password, and then automatically apply the password policy. That way, any device that doesn't have a password will always have one. Or find me all my devices with FileVault turned off, and again, automatically apply my FileVault policy. Or find me all my devices without Wi-Fi and apply the Wi-Fi policy. This is just a screenshot here of Jamf Pro that really just shows you what the dashboard is like. So all of those things can be little dashboard widgets for you that you can set up right on the home page to get quick monitoring of all of your devices. So you really get true visibility into all of your Apple devices here. Next, some security controls. So first off, if devices ever go missing, you've got some very specific commands that you can send down to a device, such as locking it or remotely wiping it. For the iOS side of things, you have a few more commands that you can do, such as clearing the passcode or setting the wallpaper, putting it into lost mode, or rebooting the device. Then you can use Jamf Pro to enforce a number of security controls that are out there. And I just want to highlight a few of these here. So here are some common ones that IT will typically do. They'll enforce password policies. They want to say, great, enforce a password on all of my Macs or all of my iOS devices. Or restrict some system preferences. I don't want them accessing the date and time preferences or the App Store preferences. Or maybe restrict some consumer features like, don't allow the use of the camera, or don't allow iCloud or Apple Music. Or maybe I want to enforce gatekeeper settings, such as, don't allow people to download apps from anywhere, only allow them to get it from the App Store. Or enforce FileVault encryption, which is Apple's native built-in encryption tool. I can even go so far as restricting specific apps. So maybe I don't want, in this case, the transmission BitTorrent client running. And so I'm going to create a policy that says, if I see it, find and kill that process, plus go ahead and delete that app altogether. Now, finally, in our lifecycle management here, we also want to be able to provide our users a quick way of accessing the things that they need without having to bug IT. And that's where self-service comes into play. We saw it on the Mac a little bit earlier here, but of course we have it for iOS devices as well too, where users can just get the things that they need without having to bug IT. Easily install software, printers, configure email, VPN settings, and a whole lot more. Again, you can see what it looks like from an end user's perspective, where they launch self-service and just browse through it and be able to choose the different items that they want to install, such as in this case, FileMaker, or installing things like printer drivers or different apps. And you can see how easy it is to navigate. And you'll note that it's completely brandable. You get to update the app icon and the name of the app and the look and feel of it. So that's self-service. And again, it really helps you save time as IT, from setting up your own printers, configuring file sharing, setting up email, installing browsers, all that can be done from an end user with single clicks. All right, the last section here I want to talk about is infrastructure planning. So when we look at Jamf Pro, this is the core basis of the components that are inside of Jamf Pro, right? We've got a web application, which is really just Tomcat and Java. We've got a database that it talks to, which is really MySQL. And we've got some distribution points that is really just SMB shares. And all of that combined can either be run on-premise or can be in our Jamf cloud. So we offer cloud hosting where it can just be in our data centers, and anytime we come out with updates, it's automatic and easy upgrades. Or you can run it on-premise as well too, as I showed you there earlier. And you can just set up those particular servers on a Linux, Windows, or Mac OS server. Now, of course, Jamf is not everything that you have in your environment out there. We really believe in this philosophy: Jamf and whatever additional tools that you need in order to get your job done. And some of those ones that are out there in a corporate or education environment are these: Active Directory, Single Sign-On, Microsoft SCCM and Intune, Cisco ICE and Fastlane, ServiceNow, and we also have an API. And I want to highlight what a few of these particular ones look like. First off, with directory integration. You can bind a Mac to Active Directory, and you can enforce a password policy using AD if you'd like to. There are some keychain issues, but what's nice is there are some third-party utilities out there that actually help sync that keychain up. And Jamf Pro integrates with your directory in order to sync users and groups into your Jamf Pro server. You can use those user and groups then for scoping. So you can say, apply this particular policy to this LDAP group. And you can use Jamf Pro to enforce that binding of the Mac to Active Directory. You can deploy those third-party password utilities that lets you do syncing, and you can deploy based on that particular scope. Those third-party password utilities, if you're interested, first there's one called Nomad, and second, there's one called Apple Enterprise Connect, and we can talk more about that in the Q&A. For single sign-on integration, you can use any SSO provider that uses SAML to both log into your server and to have your users log into self-service. If you have Cisco network, you can do some really interesting things with Cisco networks. You can do fast lane, which allows you to optimize the performance on your network. So you can say, prioritize WebEx over all different network traffic, or prioritize Cisco Spark, or now Teams. And you can integrate with Cisco ICE for network control. So you could have ICE look for your devices and then redirect them back to the enrollment screen. And if you're using the Cisco security connector, you can deploy that to your iOS devices to provide those umbrella features that Cisco has. And if you're using Intune for integration for your PC Mac management, we've got an integration here too, where you can actually send all of your Mac inventory data to Intune to provide conditional access for the Mac and do a really user-friendly remediation. And the way that works is you actually have your Mac be managed by Jamf. You can have your Mac be registered also with Intune. And then that inventory data is shared there. Intune evaluates compliance, and if it's compliant, you can gain access to company resources like Office 365. If it's not compliant, you can route it back, and you can do a user-friendly remediation option. This is a pretty cool integration. It's pretty advanced, and if you want to learn more about it, check out our website. So this is kind of where Jamf sits here. We believe that there are really just two major players in the enterprise and in education. That's Microsoft and Apple. And what's really cool is with that integration, Jamf is the one that's really tying these two companies together, enabling really advanced management between these two devices here using best-of-breed tools with Jamf Pro and Intune combined. So to recap, we talked about all the different Apple programs and services that Jamf Pro integrates with, such as APNS, MDM, Apple Business Manager, Apple School Manager. We walked through the lifecycle management of Jamf Pro, from deploying devices, getting them configured, doing app management, inventory data, security controls, and a unique way for users to get the things that they need without having to bug IT. And we go beyond our product with different professional services that we offer, training both in classroom and online, and our expert support with our global call centers and Apple experts available to talk to. Plus, we've got a wonderful community out there in the form of Jamf Nation, over 60,000 members strong. It's free and open. Check it out. See what other people are doing in the community. And some next steps here. Contact us to get started. Just go to our website, click on that little chat button, and we'd be happy to help. And if you want to dive deeper into any other topic, we've got additional webinars. And again, check out Jamf Nation and join the conversation. Okay, everyone. Well, that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.